I remember the exact moment the world tilted on its axis. Sebastian's hand, rough and calloused from endless shifts at the auto shop, clamped around my wrist like a lifeline he was afraid to lose, yanking me back from the threshold of his bedroom door. "Ronan, don't," he rasped, his voice a jagged whisper that sliced through the humid August air of our Brooklyn walk-up, his blue eyes, usually so steady, like the Hudson on a calm day, now fractured with a desperation I'd never seen. And then, in one fluid, frantic motion, he pulled me down onto his bed, the unmade sheets enveloping us like a shroud, his body curling against mine not in hunger, but in a raw, unspoken plea for salvation. It was the kind of night that starts ordinary and ends up rewriting your soul. We'd been roommates for just over a year, thrown together by the cruel math of New York rent. Two strangers in their mid-20s, both scraping by in the shadow of dreams too big for our paychecks. I was Ronan Hayes, a barista by day and aspiring graphic novelist by the flickering light of my laptop at night, sketching out worlds where broken boys found their way home. Gay as a summer rainbow, but I'd learned early to keep that part of me tucked away like a hidden sketchpad, especially around guys like Sebastian Cole. He was the epitome of straight-arrow Americana. 6'2" of farm boy muscle from upstate, with a faded Yankees cap perpetually backward on his head, a laugh that boomed like fireworks over the East River, and a string of casual hookups with women that left lipstick stains on his collars and echoes of giggles in the hallway. We clicked from the start, though, in that easy, unspoken way that makes city survival bearable. Mornings meant shared pots of diner coffee, black and scalding, while he ranted about carburetors and I doodled caricatures of our sleazy landlord on napkins. Evenings blurred into late-night marathons of bad action flicks on his ancient TV, the kind with explosions that drowned out the sirens wailing below our third-floor window. He'd sling an arm around my shoulders during the jump scares, brotherly, always brotherly, muttering, "Jesus, Ronan, you jump like a cat in a bathtub." I'd laugh it off, ignoring the electric hum where his skin met mine, telling myself it was just proximity, just the grind of coexisting in a shoebox apartment where the walls were thin enough to hear each other's heartbeats. But lately, something had shifted in Sebastian, a shadow creeping into the corners of his grin. It started small. The way he'd linger a beat too long over my shoulder while I stirred pasta sauce on the stove, inhaling like he was memorizing the scent of garlic and basil. Or the nights he'd come home from the shop reeking not just of motor oil, but of whiskey, cheap stuff from the corner bodega, collapsing onto the couch with a sigh that carried the weight of unspoken storms. I'd catch him staring at the skyline from our fire escape, cigarette smoke curling up like question marks, his broad back hunched as if the city lights were pressing down on him. "You good, man?" I'd ask, leaning against the railing with a beer in hand, the summer heat making our shirts stick to our skin. "Yeah, just thinking," he'd mutter, flicking ash into the void below. "Life's a goddamn puzzle sometimes. Ain't it?" I'd nod, not pushing, because that's what we did. We gave each other space to breathe in this concrete jungle where vulnerability felt like a luxury we couldn't afford. But I saw it etching lines around his eyes, turning his easy swagger into something guarded, like a dog that's been kicked one too many times. That night, the air in our apartment hung heavy with the aftermath of a brutal heat wave, the kind that turns the 5 boroughs into a pressure cooker. I just wrapped a marathon shift at the coffee shop, arms aching from steaming oat milk lattes for influencers who never tipped, and stumbled home around midnight, my sketchbook tucked under one arm like a shield. The place was dim, lit only by the blue flicker of the TV in the living room, some infomercial droning on about miracle blenders. Sebastian's door was ajar, a sliver of yellow light spilling out like an invitation I hadn't RSVP'd to. I paused, hearing the low rumble of his voice, not on the phone, but muttering to himself, words tangled in frustration, punctuated by the clink of a bottle against glass. "Roan?" he called out, voice thick, when my sneakers squeaked on the warped floorboards. I poked my head in, expecting the usual post-shift debrief. Him sprawled on his bed in boxers and a grease-stained tee, recounting the day's idiocy at the shop. Instead, the room felt like a cage. Empty beer cans littered the nightstand, his Yankees cap tossed like a discarded crown on the floor. He sat on the edge of the mattress, elbows on knees, head bowed, fingers raking through his damp curls. The lamp cast harsh shadows across his face, highlighting the stubble that had grown wild, the way his shoulders trembled like they were holding back a flood. "Hey, Seb," I said softly, heart twisting at the sight of him so undone. "Rough one." I leaned against the doorframe, trying to keep it light, but he looked up with eyes that pinned me in place. Raw, pleading, like a man staring down the barrel of his own unraveling. "Come here," he said. Not a request but a command wrapped in velvet desperation. I hesitated, the air between us crackling with something unnamed. But then he reached out, that hand closing around my wrist, and pulled. Not hard, but insistent, drawing me into the room, onto the bed beside him. The mattress dipped under our combined weight, and suddenly we were inches apart, his breath warm against my cheek, carrying the sharp tang of alcohol and regret. "Talk to me," I murmured, my free hand hovering uncertainly before settling on his knee. A platonic anchor, I told myself. But he shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping like steam from a cracked pipe. "Can't. Not yet." His grip tightened, not painful, but possessive, as if letting go would mean falling into the abyss. And then, in a move that shattered every boundary we'd built, he tugged me down with him, rolling us both until we were tangled in the sheets, his arm banding across my chest like a seatbelt in a crash. My pulse thundered in my ears, every nerve alight with confusion and a forbidden spark I'd buried deep. This wasn't us. This was seismic. We lay there in silence for what felt like hours, though the clock on his wall ticked only minutes. His breathing evened out against my shoulder, ragged at first, then steady, like a storm passing over the Atlantic. I stared at the ceiling fan whirring lazily above, blades cutting through the muggy air, my mind racing through 1,000 scenarios. Was this a breakdown? A joke gone wrong? Or something deeper? Something that could upend the fragile equilibrium of our lives? Sebastian had always been the rock, the guy who fixed leaky faucets with duct tape and a grin, who dragged me to Mets games even though I couldn't tell a curveball from a kindness. Straight as the Verrazano Bridge, with exes like Tara and Jess who left trails of high heels in our hallway. Yet here he was, holding on to me like I was the only thing keeping him from drifting out to sea. Eventually, his voice broke the quiet, muffled against my shirt. "I screwed up, Roan. Big time." The words hung there, heavy as lead, and I turned my head, catching the glint of moisture on his lashes. Tears? From Sebastian Cole, who once arm-wrestled the entire bar at Patty's and won. "Tell me?" I whispered, my hand finding his back, rubbing slow circles like I'd seen in movies, the kind where the hero holds the broken man together. He tensed, then exhaled, the story spilling out in fits and starts. It was about his family or what was left of it. Upstate roots ran deep in Sebastian, a sprawling farmhouse outside Syracuse, where his dad had been the town mechanic until cancer hollowed him out 2 years back, leaving behind a widow who prayed too loud and a little sister, Mia, who was 17 and fierce as a winter gale. Sebastian had been sending money home religiously, every overtime shift at the shop a brick in the wall he was building to keep them afloat. But lately, the calls from his mom had turned frantic. Mia was spiraling, skipping school, hanging with the wrong crowd, the ghosts of small-town boredom amplified by grief. Last weekend, Sebastian had driven the 5 hours up I-90 to surprise them, only to walk in on Mia mid-fight with their mom, accusations flying like shrapnel. "You're just like Dad, burying everything until it kills you," Mia had screamed, and Sebastian, trying to play peacemaker, had ended up confessing his own buried fears. The shop was on the brink of closing, his boss skimming from the till, and he was one bad month from losing this apartment, this city, this fragile shot at reinvention. "I told her I was scared," he admitted, voice cracking. "Me scared, and she looked at me like I'd betrayed them all by not being strong enough." His fingers dug into my side, not bruising, but anchoring. "I drove back here in a blackout, Roan, drank half a fifth on the thruway, thought about just ending it. The bridge, you know? The one over the Harlem. One jump, and it's over." My throat closed up, the image hitting like a sucker punch. Sebastian, my unbreakable Seb, teetering on that edge? I shifted, propping up on one elbow to face him fully, our noses almost brushing in the lamplight. Hey, I said firmly, cupping his jaw because words alone weren't enough. His stubble rasped against my palm, warm and real. You're not alone in this. Not anymore. We're in the shit together. That's the deal. He searched my eyes, something flickering there. Gratitude? Maybe? Or the first crack in a dam I'd never known existed. Why do you even put up with me? He murmured, a ghost of his old smile tugging at his lips. I'm a mess. Because you're my mess? I shot back, the truth slipping out before I could censor it. And in that moment, tangled in his bed with the city humming beyond the walls, I realized how deep I'd fallen. Not just as friends, but as something more, something terrifying and true. But I pushed it down because Sebastian was straight, and I was the roommate who sketched his profile in secret, not the lover who claimed it. Little did I know, the real shock was just dawning, a betrayal waiting in the wings like a storm cloud over the skyline. The days after that night blurred into a tentative new normal, laced with the kind of intimacy that sneaks up on you like fog off the East River. Sebastian didn't pull away. In fact, he leaned in harder, our routines reshaping around the raw edges he'd exposed. Mornings now started with him shuffling into the kitchen in nothing but boxers, pouring coffee with a sleepy grin that lingered on me a second too long. Thanks for last night, man, he'd say, clapping my shoulder, his touch electric but casual, like he was testing waters he didn't know how to name. I'd nod, stirring my own mug, my sketches evolving in secret. His profile no longer just lines on paper, but strokes heavy with the weight of what-ifs. We threw ourselves into fixing what we could. I cut back on freelance gigs to pick up extra shifts at the shop on weekends. Nothing glamorous, just handing tools and wiping grease from my jeans while Sebastian barked orders at the apprentices. His voice regaining its old thunder. It was grunt work, the air thick with the metallic tang of engines and the roar of air compressors, but it bonded us in sweat and small victories. A transmission rebuilt before deadline, a customer's grateful handshake that meant rent money secured. Evenings, we'd collapse on the fire escape with takeout from the halal cart on the corner. Greasy lamb over rice that burned our tongues, and talk. Really talk. Not just surface-level gripes, but the marrow-deep stuff. His fear of turning into his dad, stoic until it was too late. My own ghosts from a Bible Belt childhood in Tennessee, where coming out meant choosing between family and truth. You're brave as hell, Roan, he said one dusk, the sky bleeding orange over the brownstones. His knee bumping mine as we dangled our legs over the edge, saying it out loud like that. Wish I had your guts. His words hung there, innocent on the surface, but they stirred something in me. A hope I'd no right to, a pull toward confession. Instead, I bumped him back, laughing it off. Guts? Nah, just stubborn. Like you. But beneath the camaraderie, tension simmered. A current I felt every time our eyes locked across the room or his hand brushed mine passing the remote. I caught myself watching him more. The way his muscles flexed under his tank top as he deadlifted boxes in the stairwell, or how his laugh lines crinkled when he teased me about my artsy-fartsy dreams. It was torture, the sweetest kind, because for all his straight-laced history, Sebastian had become my anchor, my what-if-made flesh. And I was falling harder, sketching him in the margins of my novel drafts, pages filled with a hero who looked suspiciously like the man snoring on our threadbare couch. Then came the call that cracked the facade. It was a Thursday, rain lashing the windows like accusations, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon. I was at my laptop, outlining a chapter where my protagonist faced his first real heartbreak, when Sebastian burst through the door, drenched and wild-eyed, phone clutched like a grenade. Mia, he gasped, tossing his keys onto the counter with a clatter that echoed like gunfire. She's gone. Packed a bag and split with some loser from her class. Mom's losing it. Says it's my fault for not being there more. My stomach dropped, the outline forgotten as I jumped up, pulling him into a hug before I could think. He stiffened, then melted, his wet shirt soaking through mine, arms wrapping around me with a fierceness that stole my breath. "We'll fix this," I promised, my cheek against his hair, inhaling the rain in him. "Road trip. We'll go get her." He pulled back, eyes searching mine, gratitude warring with doubt. "You'd do that? Skip your shifts? Drive through a hurricane? For you?" "Yeah." The words were out, simple and true, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just us. The rain a curtain sealing our apartment from the chaos outside. We hit the road at dawn, the old Ford pickup, Sebastian's pride and joy, patched together with bondo and hope, chewing up the miles on I-95 as the storm chased us north. The cab smelled of fast food wrappers and wet dog, from a stray we'd once rescued and rehomed. Country radio crackling with twangy ballads about lost love and redemption. Sebastian drove, knuckles white on the wheel, while I navigated via a glitchy GPS app, cracking jokes to keep the demons at bay. "If Mia's anything like you, she's probably halfway to Vegas, winning at poker with that poker face," I quipped, earning a reluctant chuckle. But as the skyscrapers gave way to rolling hills and the Adirondacks loomed like silent judges, the talk turned heavy again. "I keep thinking, what if I'm the problem?" Sebastian confessed, eyes on the slick asphalt. "Dad died, and I ran to the city, chasing some bullshit dream of making it big. Left them to pick up the pieces. And now Mia, God, she's just like me at that age, angry at the world. What if I pass on this curse?" "You're not cursed," I said fiercely, reaching over to squeeze his thigh. Platonic, supportive, but my pulse betrayed me. "You're human, Seb, and that's not a weakness. That's what makes you worth rooting for." He glanced at me, something softening in his gaze, and for a reckless second, I thought he might say it, might bridge the gap with words I'd only dreamed of. Instead, he cleared his throat, focusing back on the road. "You're something else, Roan. Don't know what I'd do without you." We rolled into Syracuse by nightfall, the rain easing to a drizzle that mirrored the tears streaking his mom's face when she flung open the farmhouse door. Mrs. Cole was a wiry woman with Sebastian's eyes and a hug that crushed like a vice, pulling us both inside to a kitchen redolent of pot roast and worry. Mia's room was a crime scene of rebellion. Posters ripped from the walls, drawers yanked open, a scrawled note on the dresser. "Gone to find my own way. Don't follow." That hit Sebastian like a gut punch. He crumpled it in his fist, pacing the creaky floorboards while his mom brewed tea with shaking hands. "She's with that boy, Tyler," Mrs. Cole whispered over chipped mugs, her voice brittle as autumn leaves. "From the trailer park. Says he's taking her to Albany, some music gig. But I know better, drugs, trouble. It's like watching your own mistakes replayed in fast forward." Sebastian's face hardened, the protector mode kicking in. "We'll find her. Tonight." We piled back into the truck. Coordinates punched in from a frantic call to Mia's best friend, who spilled about a dive bar on the edge of town. The drive was silent torture, wipers slapping rhythmically as streetlights gave way to gravel roads flanked by cornfields whispering in the wind. My heart ached for him, the way his jaw clenched, the quiet fury in his profile, and I vowed silently to be whatever he needed. Friend, brother, more if the stars aligned. The bar was a squat cinderblock joint called the Rusty Nail, neon sign buzzing like angry hornets, parking lot a mud pit studded with rusted pickups. We pushed inside, the air thick with stale smoke and the twang of a jukebox crooning Johnny Cash. And there she was, Mia, all fire and defiance in ripped jeans and a leather jacket too big for her frame, laughing too loud at a table in the corner with a greasy-haired kid who couldn't have been more than 20. Tyler. Sebastian's stride ate up the distance, me trailing like a shadow, but before he could reach her, Mia spotted us, her face paling under the harsh fluorescence. "Go away, Seb!" she yelled, jumping up, chair scraping like nails on chalkboard. "This isn't your circus anymore." The bar hushed, eyes turning our way, but Sebastian didn't flinch. "Like hell it isn't. Get in the truck, Mia. Now." His voice was steel, but I saw the crack, the tremor in his hands as he reached for her arm. Tyler stood, all bluster and bad tattoos, shoving between them. "She don't want to go, man. Back off." Fists clenched, the air electric with the promise of violence, and I stepped forward, heart pounding, ready to play referee. But Mia twisted away, tears welling. You left us. For your big city life, your dreams. Well, guess what? I'm leaving too. The words landed like blows, and Sebastian reeled, face ashen. I left to help, he choked out. Every dollar, every call. Lies. Mia spat, and in the chaos Tyler swung. A wild haymaker that grazed Sebastian's cheek, splitting skin. Blood welled, bright and accusing, and the bar erupted. Shouts, stools toppling, a bartender bellowing for order. I lunged, grabbing Sebastian's arm to pull him back, but he surged forward, tackling Tyler over the table in a crash of bottles and splintering wood. Stop! I yelled, wading in, hauling at Sebastian's shirt as fists flew and Mia screamed. It was a blur of elbows and curses, the metallic taste of fear in my mouth, until the bartender, a burly ex-cop type, yanked us apart, threats of cops hanging in the air like storm clouds. Outside, in the mud-slick lot, Mia sobbed against the truck's tailgate, Tyler long gone in a squeal of tires. Sebastian slumped against the hood, blood trickling down his jaw, chest heaving. I failed her, he whispered, voice breaking, just like Dad. I pulled him into my arms then, heedless of the rain or the onlookers, holding him as sobs racked his frame. Deep, guttural sounds that tore at my soul. You didn't, I murmured, rocking us both. You're here. That's what matters. His hands fisted in my jacket, clinging, and in that vulnerable crush, I felt the shift. His body molding to mine not as refuge, but as revelation. We got Mia home somehow. Promises extracted through tears and exhaustion. Therapy, talks, a family stitched back with fragile threads. But back in Brooklyn a week later, the real unraveling began. Sebastian withdrew, the easy touches gone, replaced by awkward silences and averted eyes. Need space, Roan? He muttered one night over cold pizza, not meeting my gaze. To figure my head out. I nodded, gut twisting, but hope flickered when he invited me to a Mets game. A peace offering, or so I thought. The stadium buzzed with summer energy, hot dogs and cheers filling the air. But Sebastian was distant, nursing a beer, staring at the diamond like it held answers. Halftime, seventh inning stretch, he turned to me, face grave. Got something to tell you. My heart soared, then plummeted at his tone. What is it? He exhaled, pulling an envelope from his jacket, thick, official, stamped with a logo I didn't recognize. Job offer. In Chicago. Big shop, steady pay. Enough to send home double, get Mia straight. They want me next month. The words hit like a foul ball to the chest. Chicago. A continent away, in spirit if not miles. That's great. I forced out, throat tight. For you. For them. But his eyes, God, those eyes held mine, conflicted. It's not just that. Roan, that night. The bar, the fight. You pulling me back. Made me see things clear. He leaned in, voice low under the crack of the bat. I think The crowd erupted, a home run shattering the moment, but before he could finish, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Tell Seb Terra says hi. Saw your post. He's mine again soon. Tara. His ex, the one who'd ghosted him months back. A post? I glanced at my Instagram. Nothing incriminating, just a story of us at the game, tagged BFFs. But the implication sank in, someone had been watching, spinning narratives. Betrayal bloomed, cold and sharp. That night, back home, I confronted him. Not yelling, but steady, the hurt carving out my voice. Tara? She's back in the picture? After everything. Sebastian paled, the envelope crumpling in his fist. What? No, Roan, it's not. But the pieces clicked. The distance, the space, the sudden job that smelled like escape. He'd used me, my shoulder, my strength, as a crutch only to retreat to safe harbors when the waves got too high. You pulled me in, I said, voice cracking. And now you're bailing. Was it all just Convenient. He reached for me, but I stepped back, the chasm widening. Listen, it's complicated. Tara reached out. Yeah, but only because... Save it. I turned, slamming my bedroom door, the lock clicking like finality. Alone, I sank to the floor, sketches scattering like fallen leaves, the humanistic ache of it all settling in my bones. Love, unrequited and weaponized, in the city of broken promises. The fallout was a slow bleed, the kind that drains you drop by drop until you're hollowed out, echoing with the ghosts of what might have been. Our apartment, once a haven of shared chaos, turned into a minefield of tiptoed silences and averted glances. Sebastian slept on the couch those first nights, his broad frame folded awkwardly on the sagging cushions, while I barricaded myself in my room, staring at the ceiling cracks that mapped out like the fractures in my heart. Mornings were the worst. Him brewing coffee in the pre-dawn gloom, the rich aroma a cruel reminder of easier days, before I'd pour my own mug with hands that shook from lack of sleep and the whiskey I'd taken to nursing alone. I threw myself into work, the coffee shop's hiss of espresso machines a white noise to drown out the questions looping in my head. Was it ever real? The hugs, the late-night confessions. Fuel for his straight guy redemption arc. With me as the expendable sidekick? My sketches suffered, pages filled with aborted lines and smudged eraser marks. My graphic novel's hero now a shadow of betrayal, abandoned on the page. Friends noticed, my coworker Lena, with her purple-streaked hair and no bullshit vibe, cornered me during a lull. Spill, Runon. You look like someone ran over your dog. I almost told her everything, the pull into his bed, the road trip brawl, the job offer that felt like a getaway car. But the words stuck, tangled in the shame of loving someone who might never love you back the same way. Just roommate drama? I muttered, frothing milk with unnecessary vigor. The usual New York bullshit. Across town, Sebastian was unraveling in parallel. I'd hear him on calls to his mom, voice strained as he updated on Mia, therapy sessions booked, a part-time job at the local diner to keep her grounded. Yeah, Ma, I'm good, he'd say, the lie thin as the walls between us. But I caught glimpses. The way he'd linger outside my door, hand raised to knock, then drop it like it burned. Or the half-eaten takeout containers piling up, his appetite gone the way mine had. The climax built like thunderheads over the harbor, inevitable and electric. It broke on a crisp October evening, leaves skittering across the sidewalk like frantic thoughts as I trudged home from a rare night out. Beers with Lena at a queer bar in Williamsburg, where the music pulsed with possibility and I flirted half-heartedly with a cute illustrator named Jax, his easy smile a balm on my wounds. But it wasn't enough. My mind wandered back to Sebastian, to the what-ifs that haunted my dreams. The apartment door was unlocked, a sliver of light spilling from the living room like an apology waiting to happen. Inside, it was a war zone. Boxes half-packed, his Yankees cap perched defiantly on a stack of vinyl records, the TV murmuring a Yankees playoff game he'd once dragged me to. Sebastian sat on the floor amid the detritus, back against the couch, a bottle of bourbon, good stuff, not bodega swill, dangling from his fingers. His eyes, red-rimmed and raw, lifted to mine, and the dam broke. "Roan," he croaked, scrambling up, but I held up a hand, the hurt surging fresh. "Don't. Just don't." I dropped my keys on the counter, the clink echoing like a gavel. "You're leaving. Fine. But at least own it, own how you used me. The shoulder to cry on, the wingman in the fight, and now? Tara's waiting in Chicago, right? Your straight-laced reset button." He flinched like I'd slapped him, bourbon sloshing over the rim. "Tara? Jesus, Roan, that's not... I blocked her weeks ago. That text? It was bullshit. Some stalker crap from her friend who saw us online and got jealous. I told you, I swear. Then why the distance? Why pull away after the bar? After you almost said..." My voice cracked, the unsaid I love you hanging like smoke. I paced, the room closing in, posters of Brooklyn bridges mocking my trapped feeling. "You yanked me into your world. Seb made me believe I mattered. And now you're packing up like it was all a pit stop." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the bourbon on his breath, see the pulse jumping in his throat. It wasn't a pit stop. God, Roan, you're the only thing that made sense. His hands hovered, then gripped my arms, gentle but unyielding. That night in the bar, holding you after feeling you hold me back, scared the shit out of me. Not because it's wrong, but because it's right. Too right. I've been running from it my whole life, the farm boy code, the straight label dad hammered into me. But you make me want to stop running. The world stuttered, my breath catching as his words sank in. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm terrified, he whispered, forehead pressing to mine, his curls tickling my skin. Terrified that I love you, Ronan. Not as a brother, not as a friend. As you, the guy who sketches my stupid face, who drove through hell for my sister, who pulled me back from the edge. And Chicago is a cop-out, a way to bury this before it buries me. Tears pricked my eyes. The betrayal I'd armored myself with cracking under the weight of his honesty. But doubt lingered, sharp as shattered glass. Then why go? Why not fight for this? For us? Because I'm a coward, he admitted, voice raw, pulling back to meet my gaze, blue eyes stormy with regret. And because I got a call today from the shop here. Boss is folding, but there's a buyout. I could take it, start my own place. Stay. If you'll have me. The shock rippled through me. Not just the confession, but the choice laid bare, humanistic in its messiness. Two men, flawed and fumbling, choosing vulnerability over escape. I searched his face, seeing the boy from upstate who'd lost his dad, the man who'd fought for his sister, the soul who'd pulled me into his bed not for comfort alone, but for connection. You mean it? I whispered, hand rising to trace the scar from the bar fight, a badge of our shared chaos. Every word. His thumb brushed my cheek, tentative, a question in the touch. And then, in a moment as American as apple pie and fireworks. Raw, redemptive, real. I closed the gap, our lips meeting not in fire, but in a slow, searing affirmation. It was clumsy, tasting of bourbon and tears, but it was ours. A kiss born of storms weathered, betrayals confronted, emotions laid bare like the skyline at dawn. We didn't rush it. Hell, we barely moved, just held on as the game droned on the TV, cheers from strangers echoing our quiet victory. The boxes stayed half-packed, Chicago fading like a bad dream. In the weeks that followed, we navigated the awkward grace of new beginnings. Therapy for him, processing the labels he'd outgrown. Sketches for me, now co-authored with his input, our story woven into the pages. Mia visited, her edges softening, calling us the dynamic duo, with a wink that bridged the miles. His mom sent care packages of upstate jerky and prayers that felt less like judgment, more like quiet acceptance. It wasn't a fairy tale. No grand gestures, no erasure of the pain. There were arguments, still, over whose turn it was to do dishes, or the deeper fears that surfaced in the dead of night. But we faced them, side by side, in this city of reinvention, where love isn't a straight line but a subway map. Twists, transfers, and all. Sebastian's shop opened in a garage off Flatbush. Grease under his nails but light in his eyes. My novel found a publisher, its dedication simple. For S, who pulled me in and let me stay. In the end, what shocked me most wasn't the pull into his bed, or the betrayal I imagined, but the truth beneath. That love, in all its dramatic, suspenseful glory, is the most human thing we do. It breaks you open, yes, but in the mending you find not just another, but yourself. And in the glow of our fire escape at dusk, beers clinking as the skyline twinkled, I knew we'd shocked the world just by choosing each other.